Hello, today is Monday, June 16th, and welcome to episode 465 of Fault Lines, the National Security Institute's podcast that gets you quickly up to speed 3 times a week on the national security and foreign policy debates shaking up America. I'm NSI fellow Jessica Jones, and I'm joined today by Deputy Executive Director Martha Miller, Advisory Board Member Les Munson, and our favorite NSI Senior Fellow, don't tell the other Senior Fellows, Jeffrey Wells. All right, how are we kicking off this week, guys? We are discussing our favorite Director of National Intelligence, our only one, Tulsi Gabard. She's made some headlines in the last couple of weeks. Last week, she put out a video, just herself, on her YouTube page, warning that the U.S. is closer than ever to nuclear war, in which she blamed warmongers and political elites for escalating tensions. She did a history of Hiroshima. She unfortunately bombed San Francisco, which is, I'm from the Bay. I didn't love that. The video went viral and kind of prompted question marks from both sides of the aisle with, what's going on here? No one really knew what to make of the video. Also recently, she's announced some changes to the interagency intelligence reports process. There was a bit of disagreement about one report that came out about Venezuela. There were some leadership changes, and she instituted a new layer of approval for future reports. Other developments from the ODNI, she testified before Congress and stated that Iran is not developing nuclear weapons, which also raised some, eyebrows across the intelligence community. And she's also exploring ways to package intelligence reports differently, maybe even turning the president's daily brief into a video product a la Fox News style. So there's possibly some changes afoot. We might need to be worried. So Martha, I'm going to turn first to you. We've all watched the video here on the show, just to let everyone know. If you haven't, please go to our YouTube page. What do you make of this? The topic of nuclear war could be timely right now. We've got a conflict in Ukraine with Russia, nuclear power. We've got Iran and Israel, obviously, in the middle of a conflict. Give us some insight.
It's curious on many levels. This is more of a political advocacy video than an intelligence brief, which are normally given to a president, not to the public. And it contradicts, the idea she's talking about nuclear powers, yet her intelligence assessment indicated that Iran was not a nuclear power or close to being one. So there's a lot of questions about like what she's even saying at all. At the same time, going back for years, decades, this going back to even Soviet active measures, there's something called reflexive control. And, really what that comes down to is, this kind of fear of a nuclear holocaust is something that our adversaries want us to be fearful of, to the point where we recoil and just hunker down and we don't take any action in the face of threats. And, look, this wouldn't be the first time that her comments are echoing propaganda that are anti-U.S. propaganda that are heard on Russian television, for example, and alluding to, the political elites of America somehow pursuing nuclear war at the expense of U.S. citizens. I'm sorry, that sounds like a conspiracy theory that our adversaries would be sowing and as part of their own propaganda, both within their countries and outside of it. I'm not saying that she's doing that purposefully, but that's kind of part and parcel of malign influence. And she seems to have somehow been captured by these concepts. And it's also out of line with the Trump administration's policies. If this is indeed a criticism of or saying we should not be supporting Israel, this actually is going against what her boss wants to do. And imagine if any of us in any of our jobs, were to, we know what our boss wants to do, yet we go out and publicly, say that something else should be going on. I think most people would expect to be fired. So anyway, those are my kind of thoughts across many different aspects of this. There's so many things we could say about it. We could spend all day talking about this. So I'll leave it at that and let others chime in.
Jeffrey, what do you make of this video and some of the other changes that Tulsi Gabard might be making to the IC?
So there's so many thoughts today that I try to be serious if I can. DNI Quixote here has, gone off and is tilting at windmills of her own and creating monsters and giants that are fictitious. And even her own process now, after kind of putting the brakes on the National Intelligence Council, and the interagency process after a leaked report that embarrassed the White House, is dangerous. This is not what we would expect from an intelligence professional. Certainly, maybe a Hollywood or a movie writer, looking for things, and certainly this idea of purging analysts who dissent or write things that do not align with her particular view or perhaps the administration's view, is definitely a director's note to reshoot unflattering scenes. That may work for Zack Snyder and his director's cut, but in intelligence, homogenizing viewpoints and initiatives, it invites collective blind spots. And I'm going to go back now to the Bay of Pigs disaster, which stemmed from groupthink that was it created a lot of blind spots. I think second, labeling whistleblowers as deep state criminals and hauling them before the DOJ is not toughness. That's pure and simple Stalinistic silencing. And just as Don Quixote, mistaked windmills for giants, she is mistaking principled truth tellers for traitors, and I think that that is leads us to genuine threats when there are real alerts. And we historically, loyalty oaths backfire and never make a country safer. Stifling transparency never makes us safer. And so this tracking, and third on that is tracking on or tacking on extra approval layers may prevent rogue memos from going out, but it also means that vital assessments trickle out, if they ever trickle out. And if we go back to unfortunately to 9/11, we had good intelligence that 9/11 was going to happen. It was just that it was hard to get it to the top. It was hard to make sense of that. And if we're adding now all this other stuff to it, it's going to be incredibly complicated. And I just think America deserves much more than a cobbled together do-it-yourself intelligence process. We need a truly professional, steady, methodical analysis, intelligence outcomes, not sci-fi cliffhangers and wonderfully edited movies. Otherwise, we truly, the United States, will end up like Don Quixote, charging at windmills in a bravely animated but fighting monsters of our own imagination.
Celeste, I saw you during the show. You were probably Googling shelters, how to hunker down. I know that. So we can get some prep tips from you. What do you make of this?
First of all, if you guys know about nuclear shelters that can protect you when the elite warmongers launch the nuclear war, and you didn't tell me, I'm going to be really mad.
I thought you were in that signal chat.
So you wouldn't be able to do anything.
We started that signal chat.
I want to know. I want to believe. Please tell me. I want to go to the shelter. So I like a good video. I watched this video. It was okay. It's not JFK or Dr. Strangelove level. I mean, she's got some work to do here to kind of ratchet up the paranoia and the suspicion and get into that conspiracy mindset. It's on its way there, but it's not quite there yet. We're
only 4 months into the 5 months into the administration.
I know it's early. There's some potential here. It's really hard to take this stuff or this person seriously. This is someone who believes that Edward Snowden was a good guy, is a good guy. This is totally crazy, people. And somehow this person has become our director of national intelligence. We should just eliminate the position. Just get rid of it. It's not helpful.
Delete the JD, gone.
Yeah, I'm not really sure it added value over time. I thought some of the other folks in that job were a little goofy. This person's super goofy. This should not be happening. Let's go back to the old way where we had a director of central intelligence who, was responsible and accountable and, had to go kind of face the firing squad on a regular basis if they screwed up. This is bananas. The changes at the NIC, who cares? Like, the National Intelligence Council has been one of the most overrated, ridiculous organs of U.S. government for a long time, in my opinion. I'm not sure it really adds value. I'm not sure the DNI adds value. In fact, so there's an opportunity here to be Doged. Where is Doge? Let's get Doge focused on this. Let's get Doge pointed in the right direction. We could save some money, some salaries, probably some office space somewhere. Things will be mildly less entertaining, but that's okay, because I think there's other stuff we can all kind of follow and click on.
Doge is in the bunker.
I mean,
I was about to say, if someone's going to bunker,
Doge has it.
sorry, Les, they do.
Well, members of Congress could actually make that go away as well. You know, there must be some legislative vehicles in which they can eliminate the position.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's save some money.
Yeah.
I'm ready.
Defund it.
All right. Well, you heard it here, folks. Let's just cut the ODNI out. Thanks so much. That's a wrap and a strong start to the week. Thanks to Kelly Crowley, Taylor Lane, Claude Jennings, and the NSI staff for their help in producing today's episode. Join us again on Wednesday, June 18th for another episode of Fault Lines, the National Security Institute's podcast that gets you quickly up to speed on the national security and foreign policy debates shaking up America. You're on YouTube, so if you want to see Les Googling how to save himself during a nuclear holocaust, do that. And if you like what you heard or saw, be sure to rate, review, and subscribe.